In the last part of today's video, we will be talking about the ugly, where we talk specifically about individual factors that could make or break your decision. So do stick around till the end to find out if this could be the right move for you. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about my honest review of moving back to Singapore. I've been down here for about 7 months now, so it's a good time to look back on whether the decision to move from the UK back to Singapore was a good choice. So we'll be splitting this into 3 parts as usual. We'll be covering the good, which is the pros, we'll then be moving on to the bad, which are the cons, and finally we'll be covering the ugly, which are basically individual factors that might or might not apply to you and could significantly change how your experience is like when you do make the move. So with out the way, let's jump right into it. First, let's talk about the good. And the first pro of moving to Singapore, especially if you are working here, is that there is a really high salary to expense ratio. You might have seen tons of YouTubers talking about moving to cheaper places in Southeast Asia. Thailand is a popular option, and living there permanently on say $1,000 to $2,000 a month. While that is certainly possible, things are actually still expensive relative to local salary. Singapore, from my observation of traveling across Europe, the US, and Asia, has one of the highest income to expense ratios that I have seen. This is further boosted by the additional mandatory contribution to the state-backed defined contribution pension scheme that your employer tops up for you. This can be used for offsetting housing costs if you're looking to buy a property, or can be encashed if you are a foreigner. Given the relative affordability of necessities like transport as well as good food, you'll be hard-pressed to find another place in the world where you can get this kind of value for money. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is that there is a fitness culture. People are generally healthier and in shape. This also means that there are more industries set up to revolve around this. So if you are the kind to play sports, or you are the kind that is fitness conscious, then this is a good choice for you, because chances are you'll be able to find a like-minded group of people that are going to have the same hobbies that you do. Moving on, everything works like clockwork. On my first day of work here, when I went on my commute, I actually went to the station 30 minutes early, just anticipating delays based on my experience in London. And I was actually pleasantly surprised, even as a local who has grown up here, that everything just works. The waiting times that you see on the screens in the train station are actually accurate, and I was able to get to work at the advertised time on Google Maps. This is just one of many other things that runs like clockwork. You'll also see this in things like the mobile networks. You get real 5G, even underground sometimes. And if you need to interact with any government agencies, that is typically sorted out in a really quick fashion. Finally, we have to talk about the fact that the place is basically clean and crime-free. It's safe for women to walk around the streets alone at night. A lot of people have told me that this is basically something that's unique to this country and several others. There's very little petty crime, and police actually take action towards perpetrators, unlike what you would see in many Western countries these days. So those have been the main pros that I've noticed since moving back. Now let's move on to the cons. And really there are only 2 main things. So the first one is that there is no 24-hour transport, which I've mentioned in a previous video. So if you're looking to do the whole nightlife thing, that might be a downside for you. You'll probably have to take something like a Grab, basically the equivalent of an Uber, back home if you are out late. The other con that you might come across is of course the fact that being a city-state, there is a limited amount of things that you can do within the country itself after you've been here for a while. Nonetheless, though, it really depends on where you look. Chances are you'll be able to find new activities to do regardless of season. Furthermore, relatively inexpensive and popular destinations in Southeast Asia are very easy to reach through the best airports in the world. So those have been a relatively limited list of cons, and now the part that you have been waiting for, which is the ugly. If you move anywhere, your experience will be heavily colored by who you are, and different places may treat you differently. So what are the factors that you should consider if you're thinking of making a move, or you are considering a return home to Asia or Singapore? The first thing that you should consider is that there's very much an educational caste system. It is subtle, but it exists all the same. Especially early in your career, you're considered based on what type of schooling you went to. Did you go to an elite school, graduate with a good uni grade? As a more extreme example, I had a friend in London who went to the polytechnics here, equivalent of a tertiary trade school, and mentioned that it would have been much harder, if not impossible, to break into a hedge fund if he had stayed solely in this country. You might also find that people judge your value based on that. This, however, has been changing recently, so there is that. The other thing that you need to consider is that the country is relatively homogeneous. If you're not part of the typical majority, I've heard that it could be tough to find your crowd. This is in contrast to places like London or New York, which are much more diverse, not just in the DEI sense. Hence, some of my acquaintances have chosen to stay abroad permanently because they do not belong to this typical majority group. Finally, let's move on to the last point on the list, which is for the men out there. If you are local, there there is going to be the national service penalty. On the one hand, as a guy, you are demonized the same way you are in many Western countries these days, but at the same time, you do get delayed by 2 years in your career due to national service and a further 1 to 2 weeks per year for 10 years. This not only affects your career from the get-go, especially if you are in a more fast-paced industry or you are required to meet demanding targets, it is also not exactly the best thing for optics to be away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time per year, in addition to all the annual leaves that you might take. This also extends beyond career itself. When it comes to things like dating, it will also mean that you are 2 years lagged compared to peers your age, making it harder for you to satisfy hypergamy, broadly speaking, if you're looking to date within your own age range. And that is considering that this country tends to value material achievements quite a bit. So overall, would I recommend the move? If you're a foreigner watching this and are looking to explore Asia, I definitely recommend it because it provides good exposure to Asia and is a good base to explore Southeast Asia if that is something you're looking to explore. If you're Singaporean looking to return home, and particularly for the ladies out there, it is as close to ideal with the high salary to expense ratio, low crime, as well as top tier infrastructure. So there you have it. If you're looking to move abroad or stay abroad for an extended duration of time and would like on the ground insights based on people who have actually been there and done that, career link ups if you're looking to find a job out there, as well as a full whitelisted social ecosystem set up for you when you arrive, we are building this as a new offering to you. If that sounds like a community that might be interesting to you, do sign up at the link down below for the pre-launch and be one of the first adopters to get all of this for free. All in all, I hope you found this video informative and interesting. If you liked it, do leave a like down below and consider subscribing to this channel. And if you want to find out why I chose to leave a lucrative banking job back in the UK to move back home, then you're going to want to check out this video over here. With all that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.